for StaRS filter theory. My name is Kelly.
I'm Claire.
I'm Andrea.
For a little intro to StaRS, we are the filtration component of the Eau Claire treatment process. And the idea with sand filters is that dirty water comes in and the sand essentially just filters out all the dirty particles, letting the water flow down through gravity. As you can see from the middle of the slide, the water comes in and only the clean water flows to the bottom and then leaves out. The idea with stacked rapid sand filters, which is what StaRS stands for, is that there are multiple inlets and multiple outlets creating multiple filters in one column, and that essentially saves space, which then makes the filter more efficient.
So some of the first things that our team had to face, some of the challenges we encountered, came from the fact that we didn't totally understand the apparatus, as it's a pretty complex design, as you can see in the picture on the left. And we had to follow the pipes through to see where they were going, and so we messed with it for a little while, and then we eventually did get water to flow through it. But we noticed that some of the wastewater that was supposed to be leaving the system was actually recycling back through the filters during the backwash phase. And the backwash phase is meant to clean the filters, so if the wastewater is cycling through that, they'll never get cleaned. And we didn't totally understand how to fix that with the complexity of the design. Some other challenges that we saw were that the piping used in the apparatus was an inconsistent diameter. So the tubes would arbitrarily go from smaller diameter to larger diameter, which would change the pressure in the system. And the apparatus had water flowing to all three filters at once, but the tubing was inconsistent, so the pressure in each filter would have been different for each one. Also, water had been sitting in the system for the summer, and so there was mold growing, both in the pipes themselves and in the actual filter column, as you can see in the picture on the right. And then we were finding leaks throughout the system, just from connections that were either worn out or not tight enough. And then the last problem we were having was that our water pump wasn't made to flow fast enough that we needed for the backwash phase, because water flow in backwash is 7 times faster than in forward flow, and our pump could account for forward flow but not the 7 times faster. So with all of these problems, we decided that it might be best just to simplify the design and start over. So we decided that our design would only test one filter at a time instead of all three. So we put the water pump at the beginning of the system for both forward flow and backwash, which wasn't true of the prior design. So the water would be pulled in through the pump, the clay would be added and the coagulant would be added, and then they'd go through a little makeshift flocculator that we had before entering the filter. And then it would only test one of the 3 filters, and each of the 3 filters have a different sand grain size. So there's just 3 places that the connections needed to be changed in between tests, but that's really easy to do, and it'll actually lead to more accurate data by testing just one at a time. So that is a picture of our new design, a lot less piping, and a lot more simplistic and easy to understand. So after we redid our design, we still had to deal with the mold that was in the columns themselves. So what we did was we opened them up and we emptied the sand into separate containers that we would save. And then we had to scrub the mold off the side of the wall. So we just found a scrubber and we scrubbed it away. So on the left is the filters that we arrived with, and on the right there's no sand in those, but it's the nice clean filter columns.
Okay, so this is the video when we are trying to backwash all the sands, and we can clearly see the mass inside the column is actually influencing the whole performance of the system. So, and also like the mud is not only on the wall of the column, it's also mixed with the sands. So we decided we still have to, we also have to like wash all the sands. So we try to rinse the sands by just using waters and try to like stir it up so the dirt can go out with the water. But when we are trying to do that, there's actually a lot of sands losing with the dirty water we pour out. So we decided to get some new sands from the Bowie lab using their shaking like the sifting machine. So we can shift all the the sample sands into the correct size we need, and that is the machine. And we went there and find the box with correct meshes. And because we cannot find the 18 to 25 meshes, so we changed the 18 mesh into 16 mesh. And as we can see in the picture of the right, there we can only get some bigger sands and just a few smaller sands, because but we don't know whether it's because there's just no small sands inside our sample sands, or it's because we are loaded the machine too much, so we cannot get the small sands. And so we will try to burn the sands we got before to get rid of the molds, so we can still have enough small sands to continue our experiments.
And for this half of the semester, there are a lot of other things we had to deal with, especially since we were still waiting for the parts for one of our pumps. And one of the things was fixing the problem with our water pump. It was not working whenever we were calling it through Pacoda. After trying to make it work many times and even trying to manually pump the water and not succeeding, we consulted Paul, who works next to us, and also Monroe. After figuring out the wiring process and the fact that we needed all the pumps to be on in order for at least the water pump to work, and having Monroe help us start a new Pacoda file and deleting the old one to make sure that every time we open Pacoda, we were using the right file, we got the water pump to work. Another thing was that we cleaned our flow accumulator. As you can see on the right, the image on the right, it used to be very, very, very dirty. It's much more clean now. Another thing was that we fixed our pump rails so that the pumps wouldn't be shifting since we have new pumps. And then we also fixed our problem with our valves. Since our operation switches between forward flow and backwash, there are a lot of valves involved, and it was very difficult for us to figure out which physical valves refer to which number on Pacoda, and we also weren't sure if on meant that the valves were open or closed, but we figured that out now, and that's a big part of our operation. For our future tasks for the coming semesters, after we have obtained all the sand that we need and set up our last pump, and then loaded up our filters with the sand, as well as make the new flow flocculator, we're gonna have to start experiments in order to start collecting data for analysis. And considering we'll probably be encountering a lot of problems as we are conducting experiments, we'll also need to do a lot more research, whether that is just trying out new trials or reading published papers that will help us figure out and learn more about sand filters. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.